30 Odd Minutes is sponsored in part by Digital Dowsing. Who are you powered by?
For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard, we will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Hey! Yeah! Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. It's great to have you here. We have parked the spaceship on the lawn of the White House. Check it out, the mothership right here in Washington, D.C. Again, we were here not too long ago. And we've parked the ship on the lawn of the White House because tonight we're going to speculate what would happen. What would the world be like if tomorrow or today the president announced, okay, UFOs are real, they've been here, we've made contact. How are you going to deal with that world? What would happen? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Want to say hello to our lovely and talented crew. How are you, Matt and Andrew, in the comm center?
We're excellent.
Jeff.
Good.
Doing good.
Excellent.
Things good this week?
Yeah. Very interesting week.
Very busy week.
Yeah.
Can you guys kind of keep an eye out behind you there for White House security?
Yeah. Secret Service may get a little bit nipped.
Yeah. You know, they get those pressure sensors in the lawn. So I imagine when we set this sucker down, it had to have triggered at least a few of those. No? Maybe? I don't know. Sarah, how are you tonight?
I'm good. No complaints.
No complaints? Anything new?
No. Yes. I do have something to say to Nona Kelly and Blue Bonnet Paranormal. Thanks for the donation.
Yeah!
Woo! More than just beer and dreams and hopes. Yes.
That's right.
Got it. All right. And we also want to say hello to Community Minded TV in Spokane, Washington. Thanks for not scrambling the mothership signal each week. We're happy to have you guys.
Yeah, it's cool to be there. Or in Spokane. I've been to Spokane.
So
in fact, I almost died twice. Once on the plane ride down, the landing gear was stuck, no joke. And then someone almost ran me over in town. So great to be with you, Spokane. Great to see you again.
Only 7 lives left, huh, Jeff?
I know. Thank you. I miss you guys. We'll be back in person soon, one of these days. So yeah, tonight we're talking about what would happen. And unfortunately, our guest couldn't make it. We've I guess, had a miscommunication. And being a UFO and alien show, something's bound to go wrong. Matt, Andrew, why is that?
Men in Black.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it has to do with that helicopter you see around your property now and again, Jeff.
It could be that indeed, but it's an interesting topic. So, all right, let's start with Roswell. 1947 newspaper headline right here. This is really what got everybody talking back in the 40s. Not the very first UFO sighting, but of course this is the one. Air Force captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell. Front page news, which as you would expect, right? As you would expect. Matt, what happened after this newspaper hit?
Story went round the world. The base intelligence officer was brought out to the ranch. They collected some materials, brought it back to the base. The base commander issued a edict to the information officer, Walter Hott, and told them to, produce this story. And after the story broke, they brought the material to Texas, and after that is when General Ramey emptied the so-called saucer, and the intelligence officer who broke the story was brought into a room with weather balloon parts that were already pre-staged.
Okay.
While the actual craft material was brought and flown to Wright-Patterson.
Am I correct, Matt, that it also went out on ABC radio?
Yes, it went out on every major news wire around the world.
Wow.
As you would expect. I mean, that is front page news. Now, here's the interesting thing. You'd think at that point, it breaks open. You'd think at that point, the public starts to say, there's something to this. This stuff is real. This was not the first sighting. There were others, but this one was big. This was, military. You've got front page news, but it didn't, And then pretty soon it was rescinded, right? People said no, it was a weather balloon. It wasn't a flying saucer. Let it go, and it starts to kind of fade into the distance as things do. But we never forgot about Roswell. What is it about Roswell? Matt, what do you think? Why do we still keep talking about this case again and again and again, no matter what's said?
Well, one of the reasons it keeps getting brought up is the amount of people that were actually involved in the case. We're not talking a handful. We're talking a good portion of the base was used to go out there and collect the material. And these people that were on the base have families. And, they wind up talking to their family members, and this story keeps getting brought up. And, yeah, my uncle was there, or my father was there. I've talked to several individuals that were there personally picking up material.
Wow. And what did they say? Did they say that? They said that?
They've got Matt. They've got Matt.
Is that a quote?
Yeah, some of the last dying ones, yeah.
Right.
But they all said the same thing. The material was very, very lightweight, almost to the point where you couldn't even really feel it in your hands. It was that light. But they also described it as being extremely indestructible. You could fold it, bend it, and let it go, and it would immediately flop back out into its original position. They could not cut it with torches, knives, or any other type of implement, and they all said the same thing. It had no weight, but yet was very, very durable.
And here's the thing that's so interesting to me about this topic, then and now, just as much today. How do you keep a secret that big? How do you keep a secret when a few people have to know, any more than 2 or 3? I mean, someone has to look at this. It's one thing for government officials to say, look, ignore it. But it's another when they need people with brains to put their hands on this stuff and try and reverse engineer it, figure out what it's from, what it's made of. How do they not go home and go, listen, this is not of this earth? And of course they did, right? I mean, children of some of the people of Roswell that were involved have come forward and are still coming forward, still talking about what their parents told them, before they passed on and things like that. But today, how do you keep these secrets? How do you keep secrets this big? I mean, any thoughts on that, Matt, Andrew?
They haven't kept it.
Well,
yeah, okay.
Misinformation, I think, is what seems to cloud everything up. I mean, some of this stuff gets out, and it's very easy to just throw another counter story out there to make people think, it was, it was a fake story or a misunderstanding, and it was explained, and then it's let go, and it seems to die down again until the next story crops up.
Well, remember, they did that same sort of disinformation campaign during the wars. When information about troops or what have you would come out, they would throw other false stories to help cover it up. So the enemy, quote unquote, would not know what part is legit and what part is fabrication.
And Roswell happened right after the Second World War, so we had a lot of guys who were talented at that to sweep it under the rug with misinformation.
Yeah, no, that's the way it goes. Speaking of misinformation, we do have a report from our own Dr. Dreck this week. Please take a look.
Greetings, Oddballs. Dr. Dreck here. If you ever wanted proof of alien existence, then I have the proof right here in the studio with me. I have a representative of the planet Tabonga. Yes, it's the tree people from Tabonga. And he's here, and he's going to tell us about his civilization.
You didn't say you were a skeep.
What's a skeep?
On our planet, we call humans skeeps. We use them for fuel.
Fuel?
We melt them down into liquid and use them to power all our machinery.
That's inhumane.
Oh, what are you, one of those skeep huggers? We have them on our planet. Skeeps can feel pain too. Yeah, right.
Okay, well, so long. Get off my ship, will you? They should call his planet the planet of the saps.
Thank you, Dr. Dreck. You are weird. We love you. All right, so let's get to the big what-if question that we're going to talk about tonight. What if tonight, and we could speculate it would probably be, some kind of convenient time for the government, the President of the United States calls a press conference and says, American people and people of the world, aliens, UFOs, spacecraft from somewhere else are here. They've been here. We've made contact with them before. This would be big, groundbreaking, a game changer, to acknowledge that we've had some contact. The president's looked into it. Okay, now what? Of course, Twitter, Facebook, everything would be lit up with people talking about this. This would be the news of the century, no doubt. But then what? What happens? What happens right after that buzz? What happens in the first hours, in the first days, in the first weeks? Sarah, our own psychologist, our own shrink to keep us from space madness. What do you think? What's going to happen in the coming hours after an announcement like that?
Oh man, you know, aside from like losing your marbles completely and like eating other people's faces, maybe. That's already happening. Hard to say. I mean, honestly, how can you even begin to try to figure out what would happen to a society as a whole when nothing like that has even happened? I mean, really, it comes down to, first of all, what kind of alien life are we talking about? I mean, if it's intelligent alien life, then yeah, people are going to have an opinion about it, and society is going to change forever. I think a good indication of how to figure out how people might react to this, though, is really to look at how someone would react on an individual level. And obviously, it's going to feed into each other when you get a big group together.
Sure.
But really, it's a big difference if your perception or your beliefs around aliens and what that means is negative versus positive. Like if your perception of unicorns is awesome, then if you saw a bunch of unicorns coming down from the heavens shooting out rainbows, you're going to be like, yay! But if before that you were like, that's the most frightening thing I could ever see, you're going to have a different take on seeing them come. So basically, when it comes to like an individual, if you want to look and see what they might think about alien life forms being on Earth, there's like 4 main kind of categories of someone's perception, their disposition, and their culture that will all come into play of how they're going to react. There's 4 things really: alienation, optimism, big long hairy word, anthropocentrism, and religiosity. So, alienation. These are people.
You made up those words.
She did.
I totally did. Does it show?
And
but you're going to go with
them,
it, aren't you? Because they sound good.
Every one of them
roll
is a
with it.
pretty good name for a band. Each one. All right, sorry, go on.
I already have dibs on them. So, all right, alienation, not to, no pun intended, but that is to what degree an individual distances themselves from society or from other people, how much they feel they're a part of society. So it's likely to say that if someone views the world as hostile, views the world as an unsafe place, those are going to be the same people who would see like an alien encounter to be likewise negative. It's going to influence the degree of how welcoming they see that being. Same with optimism. You get an optimistic person, they might be like, wow, great, this is interesting, this is cool. A more pessimistic person might perceive an alien to be hostile and a threat. The anthropocentrism, that's the belief that as a human race, we are the central importance in the scheme of things on this planet. So if we take that and someone who's really highly that way, if aliens suddenly come down and they have all these like great technology gadgets and they're far advanced or just as civilized as we are, they might see that as a threat as well. Or it might threaten their entire identity. It's like, wow, we as humans are not the center of the universe anymore. What does that mean? And these are also the people who are going to turn to experts, so-called experts, to define how they should act. Because they see experts and humans as being the top of the line when it comes to, how, like, intelligence.
Human as epitome.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So, so people, you would think that they might actually be a little more open. Maybe these are more intelligent people, but they're not. They're actually the type that might find alien life unsettling. They might not see them as being kind. And then religiosity. So that's, to what degree do you define your religion? And if you see extraterrestrial life existing as being threatening to what your view of religion is, then that's also going to change how you view alien life trying to contact you. On the flip side, if you're a spiritual person and you are in a religion where it's more open and you see this as a spiritual experience, you're going to welcome aliens and think it's kind of cool and proof that there's more out there that means something.
Go flying spaghetti monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Well, what I believe is that the so-called UFO nerds, the people who have believed in this all along, they're going to party like it's 2099, that's for sure. We were right, you were wrong. Yeah.
And I mean, what do you think, Matt? I mean, do you think that, what's going to be the reaction right after?
Well, I think the first day or two of it, after the shock settles in, people are going to go back to their normal lives. Because, let's face it, unless it's an alien horde coming down to enslave the universe, most people aren't going to care for longer than it takes for them to get their next meal or go to work or what have you. It'll be that shock value for the day, day and a half, maybe even a week or two. It'll be talk about the bubbler at work, for another month or so, but the immediate concerns of the day, like I said, barring invasion, just the knowledge that there's something there, people are going to, move on with their lives because, let's face it, we're self-centered.
What? Us? Are you kidding me? My hair okay? All right. No, here's the funny thing. I had a UFO experience. I've talked about it once or twice on the show in the last 3 years, but I had an experience as a kid, and I remember my dad. It was late at night. I was going to bed, and my dad screamed from the backyard, "Jeff, get out of here right now!" And my dad doesn't scream bloody murder like that. So I race down the stairs. I go to the back door. What's going on? And he's up at the back fence closing the gate, and he says, "There's a UFO in the sky right there, I swear to God." And I'm like, "Are you out of your mind?" And I start walking up the hill, and I turn around, and I look behind me, and I went, "Oh my God, this giant ring of lights." We watched this thing for like minute and a half, which is an eternity in the paranormal. I mean, that's forever. A big ring of lights below the cloud cover. And we watched it, and it went over the trees. And it's not just our delusion, because the next day, the front page of the newspaper had an article saying that there were over 100 phone calls about this craft that lots and lots of people saw on the I-84 corridor in Connecticut. And so it made the news. People called, and then the article said it was a group of pilots that had flown a really thick mixture, because it made hardly any sound. It was just a very low hum. It certainly didn't sound like ultralights or airplanes to me, but that was the explanation. I'll never know for certain, but I remember in that moment thinking, my world changed. Wow, this is it. This is big. They're here. It's real. All those stories, all the movies you saw, that realization. And that's really something. It's a powerful experience when you go through it. Matt, I know you've had UFO experiences. Talk about your first one. What happened the very first time you saw something where your brain said, that doesn't look like it was made by humans to me? What did you experience?
As I told this story once before, about 11 or 12. This is in the 70s. So,
Far out, man.
I went over a friend's house and knocked on the door. His mother said that he went over another friend's house, so walked out the door, started walking back down my street, going to head over to the other friend's house. And as I'm walking down my street, heading back towards my house, in the cranberry bogs or pond that feeds the cranberry bogs back in the neighborhood where I grew up, a triangular set of lights lifted out of the woods and started floating towards me at about treetop height. And it passed over the telephone pole that had a street light on it. And I remember distinctly looking and seeing that the lights that generated from the craft didn't cast any shadows, and the light from the street light did not illuminate this object. It was like a jet black, a blacker than black, if that makes any sense. I could see its silhouette because it was like sundown, just after sundown. So, I could make out the tree line of the trees in the back where it came from, and started the starry night in the back. And I noticed that these were amber colored lights. This thing probably would have been, I would say, about 20, 25 feet on either side from light, equidistant. And it floated over the top of the street, tilted at a 45-degree angle, slowly started to rise, and then just went like it was shot out of a cannon, but it didn't make a sound. I ran to the corner where my house was in the cross street. My friend was coming down the cross street, and we all met at the corner, and we're looking up at the sky after this thing took off, and we're all like, "Did you see that?" I saw it from one direction, they saw it from another, and we were able to triangulate where it was, and we estimated the thing to be about 20 to 25 feet equidistant around. And that was my first introduction to something that was not from this world.
On the same note, Jeff, my oldest brother at the same period of time in Rhode Island was coming down our street going home with a next door neighbor named David. And they saw the same kind of craft in the sky. And at the time in Rhode Island, there was an awful lot of reports about this type of UFO. And many years had gone by. This guy, David, had moved out of our neighborhood. But a couple of years ago, my brother just had a chance encounter with him. And they met. It was like, hey, Chris, hey, David, how you doing? And the next thing out of David's mouth was, do you remember that UFO we saw as kids back in the 70s? I'll never forget that. My brother absolutely had the same feeling. It never left him. And here they are. They hadn't seen each other in years. And the first topic of conversation was that encounter with such a strange aircraft that they couldn't explain. And they were convinced it was not of this world. And it changed their lives, you know?
See, that's one cool thing, too, about UFO sighting, but also any paranormal experience. It's a really binding thing. Especially, it binds you with the other witnesses who experienced it, but it also binds you with people who have had similar experiences somewhere else, some other time. Like, you've got this kindred thing going on when you get together and share those stories.
And it just also interject, it can be a negative thing. The same UFO that you saw, good friend of mine doing research on police and crime history in New England was interviewing a police officer in Connecticut, and he recognized his name from a report and said, hey, you're the cop who saw that UFO, that big circular UFO, and did the report on it. And the cop said, yeah, I wish I never had done it. They're still making fun of me to this day. I get Mr. Spock stickers in my locker and everything. So it was a very negative thing for that police officer. But for you, look at the interest it spurred, and you know, what's happened to you.
No, absolutely. And everybody's different, and everybody's going to react in a different way. Okay, we got to take a quick break for the news. We'll be right back.
A grisly assault in Miami, Florida, has some wondering if the zombie apocalypse has begun. On the afternoon of May 26, 2012, Miami police responded to a call of two men fighting on the bike path alongside the MacArthur Causeway. As police arrived at the scene, they found a naked man pinning another naked man to the pavement. When one of the officers ordered the man on top to stop fighting, the man turned toward the cop, growling, and revealed that he was eating the flesh off of the other man's face. When the officer's commands to stop were ignored, he shot the assailant. The gunshot seemed to have no effect as the crazed man continued biting his victim. The cop then had to fire more shots into the attacker in order to kill him and save the other man's life. The near-faceless victim was then rushed to an emergency room at a local hospital. Authorities say that the suspected cause of the attack was psychosis brought on by cocaine abuse, which then causes severe munchies for human brains. In other news, two intriguing reports in the world of cryptozoology have caught the interest of researchers. A group of high school students in the southeastern Idaho think that they may have seen and videoed a Bigfoot while hiking near the western fork of Mink Creek. The students later went up to the ridge where they claimed they saw the hairy creature watching them before it turned away and ran off on two legs. There they found and photographed some very large footprints. The Bigfoot research organizations say they will be visiting the area to see for themselves if it is squatchy enough for Bigfoot. Also, a strange-looking creature has washed up on the shores of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and was photographed by a beach walker. Because the photographer didn't think to collect a piece of the carcass for DNA analysis, Lauren Coleman of CryptoMundo.com has asked for volunteers living in that area of Cape Cod to quickly find the dead specimen and help to identify just what it is. This just in, breaking news. An official government statement dated today is saying that UFOs are real, and we will hear from their leader shortly after 30-odd minutes. Just kidding. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Andrew. We almost had a War of the Worlds thing going on there with a mass panic. Glad it didn't happen. Okay, we're talking about what would happen. What would the world be like if it was fully disclosed that aliens are here, they've been here, or spacecraft not made by humans have been around us? What would the world be like? We posed the question to you earlier today on Facebook and Twitter. We asked you guys to follow us. We said, how do you think society would react if the government announced E.T.s have been visiting us? This is what some of you said. Geniuses. The Halloween Honey said, whatever the opposite of sensible is. Very funny, very true. Francis said, nobody would believe the government anyway. LOL smiley face. Thank you for the smiley face. You made our day. Jade Cooper said, hold a party for them, dude. We would indeed do that. And then Jeanette said, would be better than Congress. And on Facebook, we also got this nugget. Janelle said, half the world would panic, and the rest of the world would be like, well, duh. Totally well done. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Follow us on Facebook. You can find us from our website, 30oddminutes.com. And those of you who join us each week for the live stream on our website, you know there's a chat room, and you can jump in there. Sarah's always watching it, and in fact, she's watching it right now and said some of you had some pretty good points and questions. Sarah, what are they saying?
Yeah, they're awesome. So a lot of people are, expressing their extreme fear bordering on panic if they were ever to discover that aliens are living amongst us. But there's been some really interesting theories out here about where these things might be coming from, all these sightings. One of them was, what if what we call grays or aliens are literally us, but just a few million years into our own future, where the sun has expanded, swallowed up several planets, darkened, eating up the first few planets, and then moved on to a further planet devoid of any vegetation or light, which would make the dark skin, the gray skin, thin bodies, larger eyes needed.
Fascinating.
That's somewhat macabre, but interesting kind of thought, right?
No,
what do you think?
One of the things I've
Why
always
not?
Absolutely. Well, also too, considering the depleted ozone and the SPF 280 that a lot of us have to keep on our skin from burning each summer now. Maybe just a few generations from now, we're all going to be grays because we'll just be afraid of the sun entirely. I do struggle with this. I'm working on a project now on time and space, and the distance between stars is vast. And we know a few things about physics, like to move, we don't believe we can move even at light speed, but even if we could develop something that goes 99% of light speed, it requires an awful lot of energy. And even at that speed, we're talking years of travel between stars. So if people are visiting us from distant galaxies, that's a lot of distance to travel. That's a tough one. Assuming they haven't figured out a way to create some wormhole and jump from one point in time and space to another without crossing that distance. Maybe they have. Maybe what we are looking at is some kind of time travel thing. I accept that as a possibility, that these are crafts that are just us from the future. Maybe we're seeing some commuter plane. I've been thinking about this show all week, and I wonder, where I live, I can see, jets in the sky crossing overhead. And I imagine, what if you popped someone from just 150 years ago and brought them to today and just said, look up at the sky, and they see these metal, jets just all day long going by. Their minds would be blown. So, I wonder. Matt, what do you think? I know you've studied this stuff a lot longer than we have. What do you think? I mean, do you accept the possibility of this is a time travel thing, or do you truly think this is something from another world?
I think both, actually. What's to stop it from being both?
If they collide.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we know that there are literally millions, if not billions, of other worlds that exist out there. We know that for fact now.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sagan.
No, but I'm saying with the discoveries of exoplanets, we know that they exist out there. So if they exist out there, life is sure to develop. You have the infamous Dreck equation, which proves mathematically that it is a certainty that life is out there. You're arguing that it takes time and because of the distances involved, but science has already shown that there are particles and things that move faster than the speed of light. We've already broken that barrier. We've already broken a number of other barriers that you talked about being limiting factors. So that argument no longer holds water anymore to those that actually understand and keep up with the modern day physics. But it's not a limitation anymore, or at least we understand that it's not a limitation. Do we have the ability? No.
Right.
Would another life form that's a little bit older than us in studying the stuff had the chance to develop something? Very well, maybe.
Matt's roommate is Sheldon Cooper.
It's so true.
No, it's such an interesting topic, and it's something that, one of the best parts about 30 Odd Minutes is that, of course, it's 30 minutes until we go out for beer and wings. Afterwards, at a local dive bar, we always continue the debates, as we hope you guys do too. After you watch one of our missions, we hope it sparks some kind of discussion, because what we're talking about here is the big stuff. We're talking about life on other worlds. Where is our place in the universe? What happens after we die? That's what we explore each week. That's why we're here. We're sorry we didn't have a guest for you, but we wanted to press ahead anyway because it's something we've been thinking about all week long. It's how we roll. Now, it's near the end. We have to start up the engines and blast on out of here in just a few seconds, and we'll be back next week. Follow us on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook. Visit us on 30oddminutes.com, where you can see all the past missions for free, and you can see us also for free on iTunes and YouTube. Until next time, folks, stay odd. Yeah.